A duel in the desert for both the NASCAR O'Reilly Series and the ARCA Menards Series saw a past champion snatch the lead late to seal the victory, as well as a rookie in sensation breaking records en route to a dominant victory. In open wheel action, a historic maiden victory for a 19-year-old Bulgarian in just his fifth ever start in Formula 2. And lastly, Round 9 of Supercross was in Indianapolis this past weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium, where we saw a Triple Crown thriller. Hello and welcome to Grid Rising. My name is Tanner Smith, one of the editors over at Pitbox Press, and with me is my co-host, as always, Matthew Bro of GridNetworkTV.com. With that in the books, we would like to say first and foremost a very big thank you to our Patreon investors over here on the side of our screen. We have Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, and Nico. Link in the video description to invest in the Grid Network. We always appreciate any contribution. And if you can't give monthly, we would also very much appreciate any donations you can make to YouTube Super Chat or to buy me a coffee. But with that out of the way, you can obviously follow us on any of the social media platforms that you frequent at Grid Network TV. With all of that in the book, let's head down to Phoenix for the NASCAR O'Reilly Series as they made it out for the GovX 200. Stage 1 saw Jesse Love, Taylor Gray, and Sammy Smith vying for the top spot, with Smith slipping underneath Love with 3 laps remaining to claim Stage 1. The defending series champion rebounded in a big way in Stage 2, scoring a stage win after leading practically wire to wire. But for much of the first half of the final stage, Love was engaged in combat with a new JRM foe, Carson Brown. The two exchanged the lead several times over the course of about 10 laps, and when they weren't exchanging positions, they were running side by side. Quapple eventually prevailed, though the pit cycle that came shortly thereafter allowed Atlanta winner Sheldon Creed to squeeze by and take the top spot. That's right about when the flurry of caution started, when Anthony Alfredo just drove his Viking Motorsports entry through Alpha Prime racer LeVar Scott with under 40 laps to go. On the ensuing restart, Creed shot to the lead with teammate Sam Mayer in tow, while Quapple and Love wrestled for third for a few laps until the caution wave for Sammy Smith and Brandon Jones getting together in turn 1. That ultimately ended the days of Jones and 2 of his JGR teammates, William Sawalich and Taylor Gray. That set up the final restart with about 15 laps to go, where Haas teammates fought very hard in turn 1, while Love and Quapple both dove beneath them in turn 2, allowing it to be about a 4-way battle for the lead just momentarily until Creed squeezed ahead. He pulled away slightly while Love broke free from 3 wide when Quapple and Mayer made contact in turn 3. That is until, coming to 12 to go, Creed brushed the wall, making way for both Love and Justin Allgaier in the spacious dogleg. Just a couple laps later, though, Allgaier worked his magic over on Love, and despite the defending champion's might, Allgaier walked away with his first win of 2026 and his third overall win at Phoenix. Matthew, how did you feel about the first short track, quote-unquote, on the schedule for the NASCAR O'Reilly Series?
I just love the way the O'Reilly Series races at Phoenix. It's such a great thing to watch. I do feel really bad for Jesse Love. I feel like he put belt to butt and did everything he truly needed to do in this event, and he did not win. Justin Allgaier, sometimes the vets get you. I really feel like Love had the best car all day. Would he lead like 176 laps, which that's a big reason why his performance here. So he scored 55 points. Justin Allgaier got 69 because of the way the wins work and then stages. But I love the idea of stages solely because I feel like Jesse Love deserved as many extra points as he could get for finishing second, despite having an average running finish. I believe it was like 1 point something. There's something really, really low. So, I mean, just Jesse Love was incredible. But Allgaier, he seems to be a guy who, when you don't expect him to really come out and win, he goes out and wins. So it's just a really, really fun thing. And then there were some things that were a little bit crazy to me that I saw. Obviously, Anthony Alfredo's move on LeVar Scott, kind of unnecessary. I know we talked backstage, not on purpose, but even Dale Jr. mentioned to Mark Martin reply on, I believe it was X, where Mark Martin said he's a great racer or whatever. And then then Dale Jr. replied and said, well, yeah, clearing out LeVar Scott or something along those lines. So other than that, I felt bad for also wanting to touch on those Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas to my screen here. Guys like William Sawaltz was running really, really well. Same with Mr. Brent Cruz doing another start. He was doing really well, and then he had a tire go down. I believe he was running like 6th when that issue all happened. So overall, I thought it was great racing. I know the leaders, a.k.a. Jesse Love, and even Carson Quappo. I got to tip my cap to Carson Quappo. That kid can race, and I feel really bad that he is in that same situation as Raja, where not all his races are in junior motorsports equipment, I guess due to a lack of full season sponsorship funding. But I want to shout out Raja finishing 8th in that Jordan Anderson car as well, and then obviously Carson Quappo putting on an incredible show. I think that kid wins this year. Carson, he's due for a win. I think Raja's due for a win as well, and he's newer to the series than Carson. But yeah, overall, yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, definitely thought that this past weekend at Phoenix Raceway was another certified banger from the NASCAR Reilly series, even if, as Matthew so eloquently put it, it was mostly a butt whooping to somewhat for much of the race. Obviously, you've got to feel a little bit for Jesse Love. When you're the defending champion, you definitely want to come into the next season and assert yourself very early to make sure that everyone in the field is on notice that you're still that guy. And unfortunately, just wasn't able to get it done for one reason or another. On top of that, you definitely got to feel a little bit for Sheldon Creed. Had the lead there towards the end of the race. I don't know if he would have been able to hold on to it. I'm inclined to say that probably not. But at the same time, it makes me wonder about Carson Quapple here, because he was coming there towards the end of the first fuel run in the final stage, even took the lead from Jesse Love, which wasn't an easy task, as evidenced by most of the race, and just seemed that as soon as Sheldon Creed got the lead, it pretty much seemed like a done deal. But it just makes me wonder, with Quapple having so many opportunities there towards the end of that race to take the lead and run away with it, he just couldn't do it. And I'm starting to wonder if we have our new Sheldon Creed, and I really hope that that's not the case for Quapple. Because, and there's no shade to either of them, they're both great race car drivers and far better at driving any sort of a car than I will ever be. With that said, winning in the NASCAR Reilly series is super challenging, and Sheldon Creed is very much evidence of that. But if you're Haas Factory team, all in all, you've got to be super, super thrilled with the day that you had at Phoenix. Fantastic performance that they put on. Just looking at some other folks here in the rundown, Sammy Smith is always strong here, had another good run. I don't really fault him for that Brandon Jones incident. It kind of seemed a lot like the opposite of the AJ Allmendinger and Joey Logano incident of the next day, where the person that came up actually wasn't the one that was being reckless on that one. It was the other way around. Brandon Jones just dove into the corner like no one was there. But just looking at some of the other results, Jeb Burton, fantastic result for him, but I'm honestly not terribly surprised. I mean, the Burton blood has a lot of success there in the past. Obviously, it's not his dad, but even still. With that said, Rajah Caruth had a fantastic second half of the race in his Jordan Anderson entry. Definitely a bit of a weird schedule for them, but anytime that he can outrun William Byron and whoever else is in that 88 car, it will make him look better. With that said, Corey Day managed to not really have an incident this weekend. I was very happy to see that. And Anthony Alfredo coming home in 10th, even though he put an end to someone else's night for genuinely no good reason. all of that in the book. You got to feel bad for Nick Sanchez. His race just never really got going, had some sort of problem that was mechanical. Blaine Perkins was minding his own business and kind of got wadded up into that JGR calamity. And then Chandler Smith was just kind of pedestrian all day. He was in the race, finished 21st, didn't know he was there hardly. With that said, moving on to our next portion of this, did you have any big takeaways from this event? Anything that you feel like you can extrapolate, so to speak, into what we might see going forward here for the O'Reilly series?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one big thing is Jordan Anderson Racing has come to play this year, especially having Raja and Jeb Burton top 10. I believe that they've had a car every single race week inside the top 10, whether it was Ross Chastain, I think a few times, whether it was Coda and Echo Park. Daytona, I'd have to look back at who finished in the top 10 for them. I'm just taking a peek right now. Jordan Anderson finished 4th at Daytona. So my bad, Jordan. But yeah, I mean, that team's really coming to play. So that's really exciting to see an organization like that who, I mean, they love the race. And for them to have guys like Raja coming in the race, but even Jeb Burton's really holding his own over there. So it's really awesome for that organization. Then guys like when you have a Cup star in Ross Chastain, who is willing to do a lot of his O'Reilly races with you, says a lot about how he feels about the organization. So that's one of my big takeaways. I mean, I have to shout out two-time Weapon of the Week, Corey Day. I mean, you didn't really even know he was there, and for him to finish 9th, it shows that we've said multiple times on this broadcast, he has a lot of talent, and once he reels it in, he is going to be very talented, and I think maybe that talk with Junior and Mr. Hendrick said something for him because he had ran a really respectable race. He even beat William Byron. So that says a lot. But I'd like to touch on, too, what you said about Raja beating William Byron as well. It's got to be one of those things similar to when Corey Himes racing the number 67 and 2311. It's like just go out and try to beat Riley Herbst. That's your number one goal. I feel like for even Carson Quapple as well as Raja Caruth is anytime you are in the Jordan Anderson car, the DGM Motorsports car, you want to go out and beat that 88 car, or that 1 car, or that 9 car. I think Raja's only in the 88, but I think Carson's got races scheduled in the 1 and the 9, if I'm not mistaken. He might even have races scheduled, and it would be funny if they put Carson in the 88 for any of the races, but I think that's all HendrickCars.com this season. But most of that, yeah, and then Brent Cruz has got a lot of talent. I think we're going to be seeing him once again. I think William Sawalch also did really well. He just obviously bad ending to that. But yeah, I enjoy Phoenix, especially in the O'Reilly series. It was just a fun race all around, and it's just one of those things. It gets chaotic enough where even the best car all day, which was Jesse Love, gets past at the end. And yeah, so but yeah, the Haas factory team cars too. Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer. Also, Cole Custer will be racing at Las Vegas in the number 0 car. I believe that was announced today. So one of the best in the O'Reilly series coming back, racing for the team he won the championship with. Different manufacturer though. But I want to throw that out there. 3 cars for Haas factory team. Pretty cool. I know there's Chevrolet still, and then yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I have any terribly strong takeaways from the race. I mean, I don't think it was the greatest barn burner I've ever watched, but there was movement throughout the field the entire race, even if the guy at the front of the field did not change very much. With all that said, the one big takeaway I had was, where was Austin Hill? And I'm not talking about Austin J. Hill. I'm talking about the standard Austin Hill that we deal with every week in the 21 car. Every time that we had the championship race here, every time that we have run here, it just seems like he is out to lunch for some reason. I can't quite pin it down. And I mean, in the Cup race, which he was part of and did work there for some reason, he was obviously, okay. Finished 21st in RCR car, which is 5 and 4 spots behind his two teammates. So definitely makes me wonder why he and this track really aren't compatible, because to me it seems like a track that he should have some strength at, considering it's a bit more technical and requires a little bit more, finesse in terms of making sure that your tires, maintain some freshness, so to speak. He's very good at tire management, as evidenced by that one victory he had a couple years ago at Vegas, where he overtook Chandler Smith coming to 1 to go, or it was close to that. Either way, the guy has shown in the past that he is very good at tire management, and this seemed like a perfect race that would have featured such a dynamic, and he was again nowhere to be found. And this has been a year-over-year thing with him at this particular facility. He's just not able to put a whole race together, and it makes me wonder why that is, because his teammates clearly not having those problems. Before we move on to our next question, I will go ahead and read some of our comments here. So we have one here from Joe. I saw from Bob Pockris that there are actually 41 cars in the Vegas entry list for O'Reilly series. I think someone's going to go home, Matthew. Somebody's got to go home.
Who's it going to be? Oh, probably the 35. I feel bad for Joey Gase Motorsports. I mean, they always bring a car out there, and then they just get – I can't think of an appropriate word to use, but they with the owner's points, even one of the organizations, I think it was Dawson Cram, is it Mike Harmon Racing? They actually bought other team owner points, and they got into the event. I know we didn't do well, but
that's what it is.
But yeah, pretty awesome. I love seeing – especially when we get into the next segment a little bit later. I love seeing full car fields. It makes me really happy. Unfortunately, I hate to see people get sent home, but I just enjoy to watch it. But yeah, shout out to Joe for the comment. Yeah, I think that's where I saw Cole Custer being in the single zero car, because they posted it on. I think they posted.
It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, 0, and 41. But yeah, hey. Cole Custer is a legit threat in the O'Reilly series, where you send him. I feel like he could be an Allgaier if he wanted to be, but he's still really young. We think he's a lot older than he is. So for Cole Custer, he's if he ever has to go down to O'Reilly, I think he can win a lot of races. He already has at least 12, I'm pretty sure. But
he could go down there and basically just be their Elliott Sadler, because I mean. Again, he has a cup win to his name already and a Rookie of the Year award because of it. I mean, the guy isn't some scrub. So, and frankly, I just think that most of his struggles at the cup level have more to do with Haas factory team just not having every egg in the basket just yet, so to speak. He is a fine driver, obviously knows how to get the job done, just needs the equipment and the resources to match up with that talent. Moving on to our final question here. Are there any other thoughts that you had regarding this race weekend at Phoenix? And that can cover the Cup Series, IndyCar, because I know you obviously were not able to make it last night for post-race. So if you had any thoughts about that, feel free to let them rip.
I want to tie it into kind of what you mentioned about Austin Hill. He's only got 6 top 10s and 9 races at Phoenix, average finish of 12.4. And then if you look at the results, he finished in 12. So it's like he's pretty consistently outside the top 10, it seems like. But you're right, and it makes you wonder. The reason why I'm tying into it is because the Cup race with RCR, they were really just bad, and they ended up finishing pretty decent. I mean, Kyle Busch hit every single thing on track. I think every tire went down probably at least once, and he still managed to finish inside the top 15. So I want to shout him out. I think the Cup race was chaotic, with obviously SVG spinning multiple times, finishing in 11th, and then William Byron losing a tire, finishing in the top 10. So it was just, I wrote a lot about it in my story. You can find, I'm going to pull up the QR code here for my NASCAR Cup Series recap. Some of my thoughts are in there too about that. But I think what I want to tie into your Austin Hill point is Kyle Busch does not seem too happy with Richard Childress Racing, especially the performance.
Can you blame him?
No, not at all. If I was one of the greatest, if not the greatest to ever do it, I'd be mad too if I was in a car like that. But for him, it makes you wonder if he does end up saying, I'm leaving, and the rumor would be Spire if he ended up leaving the 8 car. Do you put Austin Hill in the 8, or do you go steal another prospect, kind of how 2311 took Tyler Reddick from you? Because Jesse Love, it doesn't seem like if he's going cup racing, it's going to be with Richard Childress Racing. I know he's got like 5 starts this year. I know Austin Hill's got 5 starts. Do you feel like that's an audition for these guys, or do you think their mindset on some other driver in the Cup Series that they're just going to take over? This is not scripted or anything. I'm just throwing this randomly at you.
I think it just begs the question of, like, what is RCR's succession plan looking like? And I'm not talking about ownership, so put the pitchforks and torches down. But more so just like whenever Austin Dillon decides to abdicate the 3, what's going to happen to that car? Obviously, they're going to field 2, but are we going to field it with the 3? Are we going to make it the 33? What are we going to do? Go back to the 31. With that said, I just feel like,
it's a sarcastic comment. Obviously, Scott's a regular viewer. He knows how we feel. Scott feels the same way.
It might be ironic, but sometimes irony is even stranger than the truth. So I don't know. Like that might be a potential plan that they're trying to put in place. So we'll talk about it later, Scott. But with that said, yeah, it just makes you wonder, because I think at minimum Love is planning to leave that team at the end of the season, whether that be to take one of the RCR Cup cars if it were to become available, or if some other team, maybe owned by a 7-time champion or a couple of 7-time champions perhaps, scoops him up. I could certainly see him maybe moving to a different engine supplier of sorts. With all that in the rear view, I just feel like RCR is kind of up in the air right now. So it's really hard to peg down what exactly they're trying to do at this moment in time. And yeah, Jesse's a fantastic talent, to Scott's point. I mean, any team should probably want to have him. And if you haven't watched the Rising documentary on NASCAR's YouTube channel that chronicles the experiences of Jesse Love, Carson Hocevar, and Rajah Caruth, I definitely recommend checking out that 5-parter on their YouTube channel. It's a fantastic watch and doesn't end up, taking too much time out of your day. But all that said, yeah, RCR definitely a lot of balls up in the air over there at that team coming into the off season. I love that idea of Richard Petty Dodge and I'm assuming Cletus McFarland.
Imagine that.
I don't think Jimmy Johnson would ever do that, to be completely frank. And I'm not even trying to be mean. I just don't think that that's something Jimmy Johnson's going to co-sign. I also just don't think Richard really has the sway over there that we think he might. I know that he's still part of the group, but based off of what I hear, he has little to no say in anything that's going on over there. And Toyota initially this year at Daytona mentioned that they have been investing more in Legacy Motor Club over this off season and into this season. So their performance should improve as the year goes on. And they also have some sort of alliance now with Joe Gibbs Racing. It is not the same one that they have with 2311 because Legacy Motor Club has its own simulator that it developed. So that does complicate things. And I think it allows Legacy to just kind of pick up and go wherever they want because they have their own sim. But I don't know if I see them leaving anytime soon based off of that. Moving on, though, Matthew, we had a combined ARCA Menards and ARCA West race, a very big throwback at Phoenix, too. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I want to throw this comment too. What a storyline would it be Jesse Love to return to Toyota?
Big storyline.
Reason why I mentioned that too, Scott won't tell you, but Scott knew Jesse Love when he was like 10, 11 years old, racing. And fun fact, remember how we touched on, then I'll get into ARCA, I promise. Remember how I touched on Nikita Johnson and Landon Lewis being Joe Ryan race car legend car teammates?
Yes.
So there's a photo of the two, Nikita, Landon Lewis, and the other car is Jesse Love. So legend car racing is very important. I just want to let you guys know that's where we built superstar talents. But yeah, let me stop stalling on there and let me get into some ARCA Menards and ARCA West combination racing. They don't do this a lot with the West, but the ARCA Menards series, it held its second race of the 2026 season and its first combination race with the ARCA West this year. The General Tire 150 from Phoenix had a 40-car field full of drivers looking to get it done on the 1 mile track in the Valley of the Sun. Pinnacle Racing Group swept the front row with 17-year-old Carson Brown, maybe a hair to the Richard Childress. He's a Richard Childress Racing development driver. So, hey, maybe he's next up in line. But yeah, Carson Brown was in the number 28. He was on pole. And 15-year-old Tristan McKee, he started second. He is a Spire Motorsports prospect. So despite there were multiple incidents on track, just short track ARCA racing, right? But nobody on track could contend with these two young Chevrolet prospects. I mean, they were just out there. Brown, it's an interesting thing if you look at the stats. Some say he led all 157 laps of this event. Some say he almost led every lap, which makes you wonder kind of like what's the official ruling there. But I'm just going to say Brown led all 157 laps en route to his first ARCA victory, the 17-year-old kid. McKee was second. So I want to throw this to you, Tanner, as well. Speaking of, there's a Richard Childress Racing development driver there in Carson Brown. There is a Spire Motorsports development driver in Tristan McKee, both racing in probably the best equipment in the sport, and ARCA, the Pinnacle Racing Group machines. So I want to ask you, how do you feel personally when you see Chevy's development program? Like, how do you see them? I know we talk a lot about them on other broadcasts. After seeing this Pinnacle Racing Group team, the teammates just put on an absolute clinic in this series.
I mean, we've been seeing it really the last 2 seasons as well, going back to when Connor Zilich was piloting that 28 himself. And Butterbean Queen ended up winning the title last year in that very ride. So we know this we know that this Pinnacle Racing Group machine is fantastic week in and week out. And anybody that they put in there is somebody that Chevrolet and GM in particular are extremely excited about. And Carson Brown is no stranger to that. I think this kid has shown a really, really, really fast start to his career. And frankly, I'm looking to see how he continues to improve. But at the same time, it just makes you wonder, when is he going to get to race some real competition? I felt like the drivers that he had to go up against weren't really a murderer's row of ARCA, unfortunately. Tristan McKee, I mean, is still just 15 years old, literally just a kid. And granted, Carson Brown is not very much older himself, but still, at 15 and 17, that is a massive disparity in age when it really comes down to track time. And for the 15-year-old in the field to be pretty much his only competition doesn't really say a whole lot of good about the quality of comp in the series at the moment. As much as I would like for it to be stronger, unfortunately, it just didn't turn out to be the case this weekend. With all of that said, though, I think that Chevy's development program at this moment in time, you can only construe it to be in good but aggressive hands. And again, I'm just really more excited to see them have to take on some true competition. I'm looking more forward to the, Joe Gibbs racing car that we often see at these ARCA events, really, bring the fight to them, and maybe a nice Ford car that's strong every now and again that we don't often see. I would like to see a little bit more investment in this series from some of the top teams to really give their drivers that they allege to believe in a more fitting pipeline for them to grow up and race against. Because frankly, I feel like part of the problem in NASCAR today is that most of the kids come up and win everything that they're in and don't actually have to race anybody. And ultimately, when they do actually have to race folks, that's when they start making mistakes, which is why we've seen Ty Gibbs struggle so much at the Cup Series level. And to a slightly lesser extent, Carson Hocevar, but that's more equipment related than it is for Gibbs. So, yeah, all of that said, all of these kids are very talented little drivers, and I'm sure that they are going to be fixtures in the sport for years to come. But I think for their racecraft and development, maybe racing in ARCA, where they are clearly far and away the strongest car or strongest two cars, isn't really going to push the needle forward for them in terms of their racecraft.
I just like Scott says, just like I say here, I agree 100%. Chevrolet is an interesting case. I want to throw this out there too. Scott mentioned Carson Brown's from Joe Ryan Legend Cars as well. And I mean, Dawson Sutton, a lot of guys like that. And also, if you look down the lineup, the other Chevrolet development driver there, Isaac Kitzmiller, is also a Joe Ryan race car legend car driver. So, yeah, I mean, that legend cars build drivers there. But, yeah, Carson Brown, too, is showing a lot of promise in the ASA Star National Tour racing, too. He won a few weeks ago, and he is scheduled to race, I believe it's March 14th this coming week. I believe they're at Five Flags. That's where I also think he made his ARCA East debut last season. But I'm very confused why they call these like combination races, too. I wanted to point that out with him. They say it's his first ARCA West win or in the start, whatever, but he also he raced at ARCA West at Phoenix last year when it wasn't a combined event. So that's a very interesting thing to me. But yeah, I mean, Chevrolet, they got a lot of talent in their stable. As long as you bring a lot of money too, you'll be good there. But for him, Carson Brown, truly a great talent. That kid races everything from when he raced legend cars, the dirt late models to same with, Tristan McKee, Thomas Annunziata is another one. All those guys race Trans Am. They pretty much reminds me of Brent Cruz as well. As long as there is a seat with pedals and a wheel and something around them, those kids go racing. And I think it's a prime example of just what guys love racing. And then I want to touch on, too, what you said before I asked the question. The next question, speaking of, excuse me, everybody got a bubble in my throat here. Talking about just all the drivers in the field, especially like you said, Toyota, Ford, really a show. That quite surprised me. I don't know if there's an equipment balancing now coming, now that Toyota's throwing a lot of money at Nitro Motorsports, because Max Reeves in the ARC East I can guarantee it right now on this broadcast, Max Reeves is going to probably be the ARC East champion, without a doubt, as long as he's old enough to race in all the races. But same with Trevor Huddleston being, I believe he's Ford, racing a different engine too. So that shows Trevor Huddleston from the West Series has a lot of talent. He's a champion there too. So for him, I would like to see more parity with that. I know the Pinnacle Racing Group, which also makes you wonder too, Tanner, from that perspective for driver development, how much is really Carson Brown and Tristan McKee learning by being in cars that are just that much better than the rest of the field? So also, you see some development. You could argue William Sawalich was in the best equipment. He hasn't really done much. I think he probably could have used some truck time too. But William Sawalich, I think he's figuring it out, which I think we see race in and race out. But yeah, for that, unless you have anything else to add, I'll throw it into the next question that I kept yapping about.
Not really a whole lot. As far as the equipment disparity is concerned. Obviously when, you have 40 cars in the field, aesthetically, it looks great. But kind of what I touched on in the previous question is that it does make you wonder how good this is for actual driver development when I might might not get a whole lot of positive attention for this, but when cars like Alex Club are out there just kind of going around far less than minimum speed would be in Cup, like it just makes you wonder, like, what are we doing? You know, like I said, I would like to see a little bit more investment put into this series, either from NASCAR or from the individual top teams in the sport, to make it a serious rung on the ladder. And that's not to try to demean what ARCA is right now. I know that the folks that put on the shows every week are trying their damnedest to make this the most competitive and strongest racing series that it can be. And I feel like a lot of folks don't actually believe that, but I've talked with a good few folks over there, and I know that they are trying to put on the best show possible, but there's just not enough high-level competition week in and week out to create that competition at the front of the field. So you see a lot more battles for like 8th to 10th than you do 1st through 5th, which is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it still is stock car experience for a lot of young talents in the sport that want to make it to the higher levels. And I still think that is an extremely valuable part of a driver's development, because how else are you going to get practice at a Daytona or Talladega without having literal practice at those tracks, which we don't often have? So all of that said, like I said, 40 cars aesthetically looks great, but it would be better if they were 40 cars that were like 10 are competitive, maybe a fringe 2 or 3 more. And then, you kind of have the mid pack and then some of the back markers, but that doesn't seem to be the case more often than not, unfortunately. But I'd like to see ARCA get back to that point. Matthew, I believe you have something not related to this weekend that you were teasing coming up. So what do you have to say about that?
Which thing are we talking about? Give me a hint.
Well, you know that phrase about you hang out with the squirrels, you get your nuts cracked?
Oh, are we talking about the...
Yes. Because I feel like by accident we kind of covered the other question that was in between.
Oh,
and
want me to read through that, and we'll go to the...
Sure, yeah, because I'm sure a lot of folks that are not in that sphere do not know who this character is.
So we'll get there, y'all, I promise. But just wanted to touch on Scott Lynch's comment, too, how many females were in that race. That's what we're going to read right through now. And then another one, Robbie Keneally out of Jan's racing team, has a lot of potential. Yeah, top 10 for not bad for a usual just ARCA West racer there.
Very, very solid for Keneally, yes. And to answer Scott's question, I believe there were 5 women in this race, which to my knowledge might be a record, but I'm not positive. But either way, really cool on the weekend of International Women's Day for so many aspiring female drivers to be in the field. It was very cool to see. Unfortunately, had a less than desirable ending for 80% of them.
Yeah, the race definitely didn't go without chaos. Unfortunately, there was an incident on lap 102 that took out 4 of the 5 women in the field. Isabella Robusto, Jade Aviduzian, Mia Lavelle, sorry, I was practicing that, Taylor Reimer, were both all 4 of them were involved. Haley Deegan almost was involved, but talk about an incredible, I think she learned a lot of that hand-eye coordination from Indy next, because she was that close to being the 5th car. So she didn't need no power steering, or she had the help from the power steering to get rid of that. But yeah, so and she went on to finish 11. So really cool to see her back in the sport, obviously, too. But the squirrel comment you mentioned, it took me a while. As soon as I was talking, I figured out what you were talking about. So it's not really related to the past weekend, but there was some news that Garrett Mitchell, a.k.a. everyone's favorite Cletus McFarlane, his friend George Siciliano, I believe that's how you say it, a.k.a.
It might be Siciliano, but either way, yeah.
Yeah, so either or, I'm going to call him George. I apologize for butchering his name, and to the fans who watch all the content. He goes by Squirrel McNutt. I am not calling him that, but he will be running the number 0 Rhett Jones entry at the ARCA East event at Hickory. This comes after Mitchell signed a deal with Richard Childress Racing to race 3 races in the O'Reilly season this series and next season, or this season and next season. And then obviously the Rhett Jones connection with obviously being teammates with Garrett over there. So George also hopes to get approved from Kansas and Talladega, as Garrett Mitchell will be doing those races too. Tanner, I'm just interested to hear your thoughts. I mean, at least it's a short track in the ARCA East and not just going to Rockingham to race a full Daytona or Talladega event. Also, if you want to touch on Cletus, aka Garrett Mitchell, which I can't call him Cletus, I'm sorry, getting the O'Reilly ride too, feel free.
Are any of you in the audience familiar with the fable if you give a mouse a cookie? Just out of curiosity, because this is exactly the kind of story that fits right up with that child's book. I just cannot believe we keep just tripling and quadrupling down on this decision. And I'm saying this with all due respect. I obviously have nothing against any of these people. I don't have anything personal against them. I don't know them, and I don't pretend to know them. What I have a problem with is folks with big pockets coming in here and just throwing anybody in a race car. I don't like that at all. I mean, obviously, this squirrel character that is now entering the orbit of ARCA, I just do not think that we need to keep like bringing in more of Cletus's posse to any of these races in race cars. If they want to come to the race and be part of it, whether as a crew chief, as a spotter, anything like that, I got no problem with that. But Cletus is already lacking in racing experience. Kyle Busch said as much this weekend that his 10-year-old son, Brexton, has more racing experience, formal racing experience, than Cletus McFarland. And I have to believe that any friend of Cletus's that wasn't formerly a race car driver probably has a similar, if not lesser, amount of racing experience than him. So, with that said, we're letting 2 guys that are, I would say, profoundly unqualified for what they're going to do out on the racetrack with people that have been busting their hump for years trying to get to this level, and some of them are just scraping by to get into a very, low running car just to make their dreams come true, to be a NASCAR driver. And I find that to be very admirable. What I do not find admirable is whatever this stunt continues to be and devolve into. Like, at the end of the day, yes, the sport has a heritage of doing these kinds of things where they would bring drivers from different motorsports or different disciplines and have them jump into a car and run races, even at the cup level. This is how we have Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt both winning Daytona 500s. Let's think about those names and when they won those races. 1967 for Andretti and 1972 for AJ Foyt. And again, these guys were, at the time, I believe, both Indy 500 winners. So, and we had this whole, catastrophe coming into last offseason where, Elio Castroneves is running the Daytona 500. That should have never been a question, that he should have been somewhat prepared for that. Now, granted, I don't think that he was adequately prepared for it, but that's more on Trackhouse Racing than on Elio Castroneves, as far as I'm concerned. With that detour out of the way, we did all this hand-wringing about him, but we're just letting Cletus, who has genuinely no professional racing experience outside of the drag strip, onto the racing surface with, in some cases, general children and, drivers that probably far outrank him in experience. It just, as Scott pointed out, it's unsafe. Like, it's just not a good environment for these young drivers that are actually here to try to make something of themselves as a race car driver. It's not going to make them have a better and more conducive environment for them to grow in by having these grown men who have no future in the sport out there on the racetrack with them, potentially out there for content. They can say what they want, but the fact that Cletus personally bucked NASCAR's rules last year and put an onboard in his car is, in my opinion, proof enough that he is only in this to get clicks. I don't foresee this being like a genuine pursuit from him. And I mean, good on RCR at this point. I think that, they are very interested in this experiment, we'll call it. And, somebody had to bite the bullet and try it and waste the money to do it. And, good on them for, allowing this to happen. But I mean, if you want perhaps torn up racing equipment and, a lot of views on your team, sure, go on ahead. It'll be great for 15 minutes. And then when he inevitably ends up in the infield care center and does another interview, what are you going to say then? Oh, well, that's 250 grand out the door. Well, we're going to do this 2 more times this year. Like, come on, guys. Like, if you want to be seen as a true blue-collar, serious outfit like you try to posture yourselves to be, does this really reflect that? Does this experiment really reflect that? I would say probably not. What about you, Matthew?
I don't disagree at all. And touching on the cost too stuff, like for Rhett Jones, it's all marketing at the end of the day. It's all money. And they know, even NASCAR, I mean, we can all agree here that NASCAR was upset when Garrett wrecked out on lap 6 at Daytona because of the in-car camera, and they lose a lot of views when he's not racing. So unfortunately for him, I hate that it's a PR stunt for him, but at the same time, I would really love if, I know he does like the Crown Vic racing, whatever, if NASCAR, bring back the SRX equipment, and if you really want attention, buy that out and put these guys in these types of cars and race them like you did SRX. Just instead of a legendary thing, focus on YouTube stars. I mean, Formula E throws anyone in those cars that has a lot of YouTube subscribers, and they wreck. A lot of them wreck, and that's even more cost effective than ARCA cars. But yeah, talking on the cost too, I know you mentioned Alex Club earlier too. He put out something that he brought 2 cars to the track. I think it cost him at least $25,000 minimum, and the profits they got from the race are only like $2,000 from finishing, I think, 21st and 40th. So for them, it's kind of like, what do you even? It's unfortunate because the money is not really there for the teams in ARCA unless you're the teams that are guaranteed to finish first or second. So for that too, you bring these guys in. Rhett Jones maybe not be the best equipment, but for them to just kind of take the money here, and then Richard Childress Racing. I know Ty Dillon vouched for Garrett Mitchell, but it's like at this point, it's like you're just taking the money to bring these guys out there. And I mean, I'm actually very happy for Mr. George here. I'm not going to butcher his last name again, just because I respect the fact that it's going to be ARCA East at a short track in Hickory, which I think Hickory deserves a lot of attention, and they haven't been getting it. There's been multiple times this year that they have a late model field at Hickory. I don't know if you know, but only like 5 cars show up. And it's very unfortunate for a very historic racetrack to only have 5 late models show up. I guess it's good for driver statistics because if you finish 5th, you're still getting a top 5, even though you're last. But yeah, for Mr. George here, I'm not calling him Mr. McNutt, or I don't want to mess up his last name again. I respect the fact that he's doing it ARCA West, but ARCA East. But at the same time, at least if NASCAR can just acknowledge the fact that they just want the attention for this, and they are using Garrett's YouTube following to bring attention to the sport, I don't think it's the best marketing tool for them, because when he's out of the race, the views drop drastically. So they got to try to figure out a way for him, if they really want him there, and not use him as a stunt to hopefully get 10% of his fans to stick around for the race. I guess they really have to figure that out. You could do something like put them in ARCA and build that series up, like full time for guys. And then I know I want to touch back on this comment too. Ace Steeler mentioned you need at least 50 races minute. In his opinion, ARCA trucks a ride to advance because they do that in Super 2s and Supercars. That would be pretty cool. I think that's a hell of an idea from the Ace Steeler 101. I mean,
it seems like other series around the world have it figured out, and yet NASCAR continues to act like it's a carnival.
Yeah, that's boop boop with the clown nose. Sometimes that's what you see people in the
I'll
field.
get the seltzer water and the squirting lily if you want to go get the clown car pulled up. But yeah, sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
It makes perfect sense. It's like one of those things. I respect the hustle. I respect the game. YouTube it's a job for these guys, but for them to just, because what other sport that you kind of see, oh, let's have fun. Let's just go enter the 4th tier of North American motorsports and just let's go have fun. We're going to put a camera in the car. You don't see that in open wheel racing at all because you can't, because they don't let that stuff happen. But NASCAR wants the attention. So
imagine if, for a second, y'all, let me frame it to you this way. Imagine if some YouTuber basketball sensation wanted to be in the G League. They wanted to go to the NBA's development league. They would get smoked in a minute because the guys that are in the G League are almost good enough to be in the NBA. And frankly, there is not a single YouTuber on earth that isn't already or hasn't already been a professional basketball player that is good enough to compete with almost professional basketball players. I think we need to start applying those same standards to American motorsports and stop treating it, again, like it's a carnival. I know that Bill France liked to treat the races like it was a carnival and like it was this big, boat and pony show. But it's not that. It's serious money. That's why JGR and Chris Gabehart and Spire Motorsports are in the courtroom right now, because apparently you can't even pass a setup off to your new race team when you go there, even if it's one you created all on your own. So, yeah, NASCAR is just caught in this weird place of its heritage and what the future looks like. And this is a keystone moment in that for me. Like, you have to kind of start divorcing yourselves if you want to have the general public take you seriously. And right now, having this YouTuber be in your car in the 2nd tier series of American motorsports is bad. It is not a good look. No one outside of the sport is going to look at that with anything but derision. And I promise you, this quick fix gimmick that you're trying to do again, that you will always manage to do at the worst possible times when you're starting to really point things in the right direction, it's going to backfire. And I just really hope that it's going to backfire in terms of money and not somebody getting hurt. Because having this guy at Talladega in an O'Reilly car because he did one test at Rockingham, which is less than a mile big, and he's going to the largest oval track on the continent, seems like a bad idea.
I don't, just like that Olivia Rodrigo song, Bad Idea, right? Right? Yeah, I have a
dude, that's how,
music station.
That's how Jim France is running the sport right now. Just be a bad idea, right?
Yeah. Nice to see Cletus tonight, right? See, we're good at that. Okay.
He watches these clips and kicks his feet up behind him like he's in high school talking on the phone with his crush. Like, it's crazy. It's nasty work, Jim. Get it together, man. I think that's enough NASCAR, stock car, etc. talk. Can we move on to Australia and talk about some Formula 2s?
Absolutely. I want to throw the comment out from Ace.
Oh, yeah.
Skipped it by mistake earlier, but why don't NASCAR IndyCar put on an Adelaide Grand Finale style motorsport festival and event?
I think if you actually go to the title races, which I have, I went every year from 20 through 23. at Phoenix. And I mean, granted, they don't do a great job booking every year. Like, it's not always, I'm trying to remember who they all had at Adelaide last year, but I'm pretty sure ACDC, which is probably the biggest old act in Australia and that area of the world's history. You know, obviously it's nobody like that, but I mean, in the country crowd in 2021, they had Dierks Bentley show up there, who is still a pretty big name over there. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see them, engage more with the younger fans and bring in some more folks, because 20 years ago, guess who we had singing the national anthem at the Phoenix Fall Race? Taylor Swift. Like,
his classmate, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Joseph Newgarden and Josh Berry's classmate, Taylor Swift. Yes, exactly. And I'm glad to hear that, Joe, even though I'm sorry for the mess. Anyhow, enough of the NASCARs. We're moving on to Formula 2. Matthew, what do you got for us?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for what a Steelers comment too, that was just more of a, I think it's a logistical thing, kind of shipping all the equipment out.
Definitely.
I would love if they would bring Supercars back to Coda, because Supercars has a weird schedule where they're kind of off for a while. You could bring Super 2 here. They got 5 months of doing absolutely nothing, which is...
I could not believe that when I saw the schedule.
doing that, but yeah, just that's crazy. And then another comment just quick before we leave: Cleus wrecking Austin or Jesse Love, that would be insane.
Exactly. Well, I mean, hey, that's Richard getting what he asked for, as far as I'm concerned. That's his teammates that he's wrecking. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Denver, and thank you for tuning in tonight. Yeah, I mean, like, what if he goes out there and ruins like Ryan Sieg's run at the Chase? And again, this is a guy that's an owner and driver. That will be a massive miss on money for that team if they're unable to make the postseason because some YouTuber went out there and clobbered him and then made content out of it.
Yep, I agree 100%. Now, I promise, we're getting late with the
yeah.
I think a lot of the stuff that has been said in the comments and by you and myself needed to be said. But okay, Formula 2 at Melbourne. Ready for this? Let's go.
Let's do it.
Formula 2 made its season debut as well this weekend in Melbourne. They kicked off their season with a sprint race around Albert Park. Invicta Racing's Joshua Dirksen carried the flag well for his native Paraguay as he took the sprint race victory. So I want to shout out Joshua there in Australia for the second year in a row, followed by Campos Racing's Noel Leon and Rodin Motorsports' Alexander Dunn. I apologize in advance if we are butchering these names. In the feature race, drama emerged from the pit lane prior to the green as Sebastian Montoya left his pit box and clattered the front of Roman Belinsky's Dams Lucas Oil machine. The drivers wound up 9th and 12th, respectively. After a hairy start, too, lap 3 saw the first caution fly at the front of the field as Rodin teammates Dunn and Martinez Stenshorn made contact at the end of the main straight as Dunn tried to close off Stenshorn heading into turn 1. I don't really know what happened there. We'll touch on that a little bit later. And then also Alex Dunn was mad about that. We'll touch on that, kind of what was he doing there. But just as pole sitter Dino Beginvich, set his sight. I was doing well too on Campos Racing's Nikola Tsolov. Dino's car suffered a mechanical failure around the halfway point of this race, allowing Nico Verone from Van Amersfoort Racing to snatch the lead after pitting during the safety car. In the end, Tsolov swept around Verone on the restart as the Argentine dropped out of the points entirely following a penalty for speeding on pit road. Can't do that. The Bulgarian driver held the lead all the way to the finish, claiming his first career win in just his 5th start in Formula 2, while Invicta's Rafael Camara and Trident's Lorenz Van Hopen took to the podium as well. And history was made, obviously the first Bulgarian driver to ever win in Formula 2. So I want to give a huge shout out to the country of Bulgaria as well as Nikola Tsolov. But yeah, Tanner, I don't have much really to talk about too. I know we touched on the results on the side of the screen here. How did you feel? Formula 2's finally started. So how do you feel about that?
Well, Matthew, I'm not particularly familiar with this racing series because accessing it is a pain in the behind. For those of you Americans out there, we recently got shifted over to Apple TV, which one of my least favorite streaming services by far. And I tried so many different ways to get around paying for, the $13 a month they're trying to get us to pay to watch all this stuff. And unfortunately I couldn't. So, gonna have to just bite the bullet with the Apple and watch it that way. But at the end of the day, I was pleasantly surprised by the competition in F2. It wasn't, the most spectacular main race that I've ever seen, but I've seen a lot of worse F1 races. I will tell you that. With that said, looks like Red Bull may have another good prospect on their hands to hopefully fill up that second seat whenever it unfortunately becomes free, or whenever Max Verstappen ends up stepping aside. With that said, you've definitely got to give a shout out to Colton Herta, obviously his first race weekend in this series, and granted did not have the easiest sprint race that you've ever seen. Had a couple of incidents with Sebastian Montoya, and there was another driver that he had contact with, but I'll just chalk that up to these cars seem to be a lot easier to break traction with than the Indy car. And they're very sensitive to contact because Herta is definitely used to, kind of a more rigid car that races a little bit harder and, can take a little bit of contact compared to the F2 car. So definitely still just feeling his way around. Obviously, as I've mentioned and been consistent about with other motorsports, I do not think that drivers should be coming into the second tier of anything and be learning, so to speak. But I will just chalk it up to Herta, like I said, having different experience in a different kind of open wheel car that is a bit more durable. So he probably thought contact was a little bit easier to get away with, but I think he'll wise up from here and not be so contact heavy going forward. And in fact, in the feature race, he had a relatively flawless day from what I saw and ended up 7th. I mean, that's, in my opinion, a pretty strong result. I feel like if you were expecting better than that, you were probably a bit either a fan of Colton Herta or maybe perhaps a bit too optimistic upon debut. But Matthew, did you have any takeaways from this race?
It's funny to see Colton Herta and then Sebastian Montoya. I know their little get together. I saw something.
Montoya on track again.
I'm a huge Juan as father. I think Juan Pablo Montoya is one of the best to ever do it in all of motorsport. I will die on that hill. I think he is up there with some of the greats in terms of he could get in anything and literally go out and compete and win. But I think there was something way back when with Juan Pablo, and then I think Colton Herta's father, is it Brian? There was something back then where those two actually raced against each other. I think it was IndyCar. If not, I apologize for throwing that out there, but I think that's what happened. So pretty cool. I guess the nationalism that I have in me, the very little, is excited for Colton Herta. I think he is significantly better than Logan Sargent has ever been. And for him, I think it would be really cool to see an American in F1 again that I really think is capable of scoring. I don't like that the super license system kind of shafted him a little bit when it came to him having to go to Formula 2 to race. I mean, I don't think he was going to get a Formula 1 seat anyway, but it's probably better for Colton Herta to race Formula 2 to get used to all the tracks that he's going to be at when I think he inevitably makes it to Formula 1. I hope he does. I think we're all hoping he does, but I don't know who he kind of replaced. I guess probably he is a Cadillac reserve driver, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a couple other guys, but obviously Jack Crawford's also got a legit chance at being a Formula 1 driver soon. I know he's a reserve driver. So maybe the Americans can come do something in Formula 1. But yeah, other than that, race weekend, Tsolov, I mean, great race, got out front and just showed why he's Nikola Tsolov. So other than that, I mean, there's some notable names on the list too. names that you've seen before in other series, obviously down in 15th, Emerson Fittipaldi. I've heard that name before, just talking about racing. And then Alex Dunn going from 4th in the sprint to 22nd wrecking his own teammate. That was something interesting. I know I'm very sure Alex Dunn was a McLaren driver, if I'm not mistaken. And then he said, well, they're not getting rid of Lando or Oscar, so I might as well kind of join a different development program, which now I think he's in Alpine's development, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that,
when they were done with him, yes, as it were.
It's my middle name too, one of them, just without the E at the end. So that's a fun fact about Matthew Bro. I have 2 middle names. One of them is Dunn. But other than that, Formula 2, they do make it really hard to watch as an American, as well as, I mean, I'm an okay Apple TV guy, though. I love Ted Lasso, Shrinky, stuff like that. So I appreciate
cool,
that.
But yeah.
But other than that, yeah. But yeah, I was trying to get the results so we could do the graphic. Shout out Joe. I could not find a list of where they would just like singularly list them all, reading through all of F2 media. I don't know why they made that so different.
I had to individually look up each driver in their race team in one tab and then have the results open in another, because they would just abbreviate it to their little like 3, like Ham and Ver and all that stuff. I'm like, guys, it's a website. You can type their whole names out. Like, come on, get a grip. Again, second tier series in international open wheel racing. Why is your website not built out at all? Absolutely pathetic work. FIA Formula 2 website. Get it together. But with that in the book, we're on to our final series of the weekend. We're taking you from 4 wheels to 2 and heading to Indianapolis for the 9th round of the Monster Energy Supercross Championship for a Triple Crown weekend. Now, for those of you that are not as ingratiated into the Supercross game, those Triple Crown weekends are where the 250 and the 450 divisions race 3 different times over the same race weekend, rather than doing the 2 heats LCQ main setup that they normally have. So each race for the Triple Crown in the 250 division was 10 minutes, and for 450 it was 12. So after the races are all concluded, the rider with the most cumulative points earned over the trio of races wins the Triple Crown. So in the 450 division, Hunter Lawrence was tied with Eli Tomac, but because he had a higher finish in the final race, obviously winning, he ended up getting granted the win in that division. So let's talk about 250. On the whole shot of race 1, Husqvarna's Daxton Bennick rocketed to the lead with 250 world champion Joe Shimoda in hot pursuit out of the gate on his Honda. Meanwhile, 250 East Championship leader Pierce Brown struggled and fell down to 21st at the beginning of the race, but ultimately was able to put on a furious charge all the way back to 10th. And Yamaha's Cole Davies scooted by Shimoda in the whoops before doing the same thing to Bennick a few laps later en route to the first victory of the Triple Crown, while Shimoda and Seth Hammaker took the podium. As for race 2, Jalek Swoll motored his Triumph to the lead on the whole shot, and just a minute into the race, Kawasaki's Seth Hammaker crashed while in the battle for 4th place. Up at the front, a scrap broke out amongst the podium positions as Swoll, Shimoda, and Davies kept swapping positions until Swoll bowed out of the fight when he wrecked with a little over 5 minutes to go. From there, Davies carried the torch to the finish, leading to his second victory of the night with Shimoda. And Pierce Brown actually bouncing back from that first race and landing on the podium in the second event. Finally, race 3 capped it all off with Jalek Swoll, another strong start, taking the whole shot there. And he had a brief battle with Yamaha's Devin Simonson before Davies blew by both of them en route to a clean sweep of the Indy Triple Crown, while Joe Shimoda took home second in the Triple Crown and Hammaker took third. Great weekend of Supercross with, like I said, Hunter Lawrence taking that 450 victory. Matthew, I'm sure you caught the highlights of this one. Did you have anything to add about this particular race weekend for Supercross?
Not as much. I think you did cover a lot of it in terms of the factual stuff, I would say. But I love the idea that when you do, like when Supercross comes, a lot of the time you would think that there would be a couple guys up front all the time. Like, I mean, Joe Shimoda, obviously. We've talked about him previously on, I think it was either episode 3 or 2 or 1 of Grid Rising, or probably all of them at this point. But I like the idea that there are so many battles within the field that some driver can finish 8th on pace in one race and then come out and go win the second race and then go back to 4th or 5th in the third race. So other than that, they're already halfway through the season. Isn't that crazy? I think this was round 9 of 17, so a little over half technically, because they can't really do 8.5 to split 17. But yeah.
Well, that's because they're doing what in the music business they would call an arena tour right now, right? Second half of the year in the summer, they get out of the arenas and head out into the festival scene where they do nationals, which is just called motocross. So definitely looking forward to that as the end of May comes around. But yeah, it'll definitely be a fun little shot to the finish here. They are taking a halfway break for this week, so we will not be talking about Supercross this coming week. But with all that in the book, we will be moving on to our final little bits of the week. So first off, we'll be starting with our grid shining moments. So Matthew, out of all the races this weekend that we covered, what's your grid one shining moment?
Oh, man. It's so funny, Tanner, because I totally forgot about this, the grid shining moment, doing so many other things. But just looking at it, I think a big one's got to be Tsolov becoming the first, I believe, Bulgarian to ever win in Formula 2. I think when you make history, that's truly something that we should talk about, especially when you're the first person from your country to win an event like that, especially in the second tier of open wheel motorsports, not at a national level, not just IndyCar or Indy Next, but to win a Formula 2 event being the only driver ever from your country. So I want to shout out Nikola Tsolov for that. And then just ARCA West, I have to throw out, Carson Brown truly put on an absolute clinic. I know he might be in the best equipment, but I still think you have to be good enough in the best equipment to put belt to butt like Carson Brown did. So I think that kid deserves a shout out. I think he's going to win more races. I know he's not technically full time, I believe, in the ARCA. I know he's 17, but something about he had other prior commitments from what I heard, so he's going to be out of the seat. I don't know if it's Hickory. Oh, it's the one Derek Nealand is racing. I think it's Hickory, the Cup Series spotter. I think is a Kyle Busch's spotter.
Derek Nealand, yeah.
So I think he's in Carson Brown's seat for that race. I'm not. Oh, is that next? Is that the 14th? No. When is that? I don't even know at this point. There's so much racing going on. But I think Carson Brown obviously has ASA Star National Tour, where he is, I believe he was Rookie of the Year last year, won a few races, was top 3 in the standings. So the kid's racing a lot. I think that's great for if you're Richard Childress Racing. You got to even out your PR stunt by having a real true racer on your team. So maybe those guys will be teammates in a few years. But yeah, I think Nikola Tsolov is definitely my number one, being the first from your country in Bulgaria to win an event in Formula 2 is pretty awesome. And then Carson Brown just put belt to butt, leading. Some say he led every lap. Some say he led almost every lap. There's really no official word on that. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But, yeah, those are definitely my two. Tsolov and Carson Brown were my grid shining moments.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for that. As for me, if you tuned into Grid Wrap Up last night, obviously I gave my take that I thought the Penske cars were easily the toast of the weekend in the premier series of motorsports, with Joseph Newgarden taking the IndyCar victory and Ryan Blaney taking the Cup victory. But since I'm going to make this a little bit more localized to some of the lower tier series that we cover, I'm actually going to throw mine over to Rajah Caruth. I think that this schedule, when it first dropped for him this year, definitely gave me some cause to pause for him, because I was like, man, you're giving him a junior motorsports car, but only for part of the season, like 3/4 of the season. And I kind of felt like he was kind of getting shortchanged by, having to go anywhere else, because obviously Junior Motorsports is the pinnacle of NASCAR O'Reilly Series racing. I nearly messed up and called it the other thing. But with that said, I think that Rajah's run towards the end of that race, granted it was on fresh tires, was still really impressive, because if you watched the end of that race, the mid-pack was a madhouse. It was nothing but mayhem from inside wall to outside wall. And for him to have the fortitude to be able to pick his way through there and, not get his car torn up and get into a mess like some of the other drivers found themselves in was really, really impressive to me. And to come home again in front of the 88 car, I think that any time that he is not in his main car with Junior Motorsports, the aim should be to either win or to at least beat the car that he should be driving week in and week out. And he went out and did that. And against a guy in William Byron that's a 2-time Daytona 500 winner, a multiple-time championship 4 appearance maker, the guy is one of the best in the Cup Series on Sundays. And for Rajah to go out there and beat him was super impressive, especially in Jordan Anderson's car. And that's nothing against Jordan Anderson. The man is a fantastic team owner and continues to build that program up steadily but surely over the years. And I think he's starting to really see the fruits of his labor, because he's got Cup guys taking that team, forward, and Ross Chastain's picking up a good few races with them. And it's a really good feel-good story in the O'Reilly series this year to see Jordan Anderson Racing kind of rise like this. I mean, even Jeb Burton at tracks where he's not really strong is having good runs. So hats off to Jordan Anderson Racing and to Rajah Caruth. And Denver here is chiming in by saying IndyCar and NASCAR holding hands and putting on a show on both Saturday and Sunday is their one shining moment. Definitely agree with that. Always glad to see motorsports execs put their feelings to the side and actually put on something great for the fans. And Denver also tagged in, we need a Michigan 500, 400 double IndyCar and NASCAR. And I mean, you're not going to hear any disagreements out of me, Denver. we all know that I am raring for some, more cumulative racing action on the same weekend. I think everybody that watches motorsports, more than one of them, enjoys this kind of stuff, and we would love to see it continue to be replicated. With all that said, we're moving on to our final segment, Weapon of the Week, where we talk about the driver that found themselves in the most mess throughout the weekend. Matthew, let's start with you. Who's your Weapon of the Week?
Unfortunately, it makes you think a little bit harder because it's not a back-to-back Weapon of the Week, Corey Day, so I want to shout him out. My Weapon of the Week personally would probably be Alex Dunn over in the Formula 2 feature race. He blamed his teammate for that when his incident happened on lap 3, where they were racing side by side, him and his Roto Motorsport teammate, and he just kind of got in front of him, and I don't know if it was a brake check or just a very terrible read on what he was, and he wrecked each other, and they both finished with the DNF in like 21st and 22nd. So not really the best thing for him. I encourage people to check out that incident we've referenced multiple times on this broadcast, but I would say Alex Dunn was probably my Weapon of the Week. Even in ARCA West, I don't really know if there was one, which I guess is good. And then in O'Reilly, you could argue Anthony Alfredo making that terrible move on LeVar Scott, just kind of not really watching that. And then obviously Denver and Cameron completely destroying Brock Feeney. That is a very good one that I completely forgot about, but then I remember seeing that highlight. The low light for the Red Bull Ample Racing team. But yeah, so Alex Dunn, you are Matt Bros, I guess episode 4, Weapon of the Week. I'm curious to hear what you have for your weapon, Tanner.
Well, before we move on, I do actually want to touch on that because
I'll bring it back.
I just could not believe that Alex Dunn was so mad at his teammate when he caused the crash. He was maybe in front of him by about a foot, maybe a foot. And granted, the braking zone's coming up, and I get you don't want that guy to be on your inside or whatever, But I don't know, if a guy did that in a NASCAR race and got shipped out of the way, I would not think twice about the second guy doing that to him, because like, you're basically begging for that to happen. That was the most low IQ move I think I've seen this year, and it happened on lap 3 of 33. What are you doing? And frankly, had it not been for this other guy getting into so many accidents at the same track, I probably would have also had Alex Dunn at the top of my weapon of the week list. But unfortunately, episode 4's weapon of the week from Tanner Smith is none other than 2024 Supercars champion Will Brown. That man hit everything but the pace car this weekend out in Melbourne. And it was really, really unfortunate to see, because I actually think very highly of Will Brown. I think he is a fantastic road racer, and it's really unfortunate in his NASCAR starts he hasn't really been able to get, the right amount of luck to go his way to actually have a clean little bit of the race to compete in. But man, what an awful, awful weekend for him. And to cap it all off, had the lead in the 4th race, I believe, over Brody Kostecki late in the event, and just got absolutely juked out by Kostecki going into what I believe was turn 9. Whew, what a move that was. But man, just absolutely broke Will Brown's ankles. But yeah, he got into an accident in the 1st race, the 2nd race, the 3rd race. And I mean, it's not an accident, but in the 4th race, he was actually competing and got completely juked out. So I don't know what's been going on with Will Brown. Again, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he is one of the best in the Supercars series, but it just seems that ever since he won that 2024 title, he just hasn't been able to reclaim that championship form. And part of me wonders if that's starting to bug him. But with all that said, I think we're coming down here to the end of our show. But Matthew, the reason you were on wrap up last night was pretty interesting. So before we hop out of here, I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if you want, to talk about why that might have been.
Yeah, I almost said I forgot about it, but I haven't, because I am in drastic pain over here. If you see me wincing, there's a reason. So I've been blessed enough to be a match in this program called National Marrow Donor Program, which used to be called Be the Match. And I had matched with an individual somewhere in the United States of America for my blood stem cells. And this individual has a form of leukemia, and I have been taking injections of filgrastim, which has hurt me terrible. And I love Grid Network. Obviously, I've been here for 4 years. I love being on the Grid Wrap-Up show while writing my story. But when I tell you the side effects of me not drinking enough water were absolutely killing me last night, so I appreciate Kobe and Tanner and Joe for taking over so I didn't have to be there. And writing that story was a pain right in my butt. Not actually my butt, mainly my lower back and my sternum. But yeah, it's just one of those things too. It's just a fascinating thing for me to be able to be blessed. So very soon I will be flown somewhere, one of their facilities, to donate my blood stem cells. And I am super excited to help this individual out somewhere in the U.S. Don't know who it is. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just very happy to be blessed, be a 100% match, which is more of a rare thing. Fun facts for the people. Please join the Be the Match program. Look it up. It's an incredible thing. I started 4 years ago, never had a match. Even the likelihood, I believe people average about 7 years before they're even possibly a match. And if you have someone in your own family, thank you, Amber, you are only likely to be a 30% match at most with someone in your own family. So for me to be a match with this individual somewhere in the USA, I believe it was 1 in 350, some statistic I saw, which it's just, I just feel so honored to be able to help someone out here. And I'm suffering now, but I can only imagine what they've been dealing through. And I'm willing to feel this right now so I can help them out very soon. And I'm just looking forward to it. But yeah, those are some fun facts about that. So if you saw me wincing in this broadcast at all, or a little bit busy, maybe a little behind, I've been trying to get stuff ready for that. Obviously, the NASCAR recap, I did it as fast as I could. I got back pain now. If I drink enough water, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But unfortunately, I've been trying to hydrate, as you can see. But yeah, so I just recommend everyone to please reach out. They try to primarily, anyone can really be a part of it. There are some health things you have to, I guess, be within, but really I believe it's nmdp.org, I believe it is, or just search Be the Match Bone Marrow. I did a mouth swab in college 4 years ago, and look where we are now, very close to that process. So looking forward to that. I will still be on. You'll still see my writing as much as possible. I hope my recovery time when that event does occur will be good. But yeah, it's truly an awesome thing. Thank you, Tanner, for letting me talk about that too. So I'm still young, so hopefully I can help this person out and recover very quickly, because right now I am not having fun with my side effects. And thank you, Joe, as well. So I'll still be on Grid Rising, still be on gridnetworktv.com, just maybe not as comfortable as I usually am based on my dehydration and pain.
Definitely. And yeah, man, like when you told us this, I was like flabbergasted. I was like, wow, that's amazing, but crazy, But yeah, I really hope that, we can hopefully influence some folks out there to go do the same. There are folks falling ill with leukemia every day that need, healthy bone marrow to hopefully counterbalance what's going on in their own. And, folks like Matthew are, picking up the slack for them and helping them out. And I think that hopefully more folks will be doing that going forward. But yeah, really appreciate you sharing that with everybody. And unless you have anything else to add, I think it's time for us to start hitting the old dusty trail.
Yeah, I tried to drop the link. I think I dropped probably the incorrect one. I think it brought up to a language thing, but that's kind of the website, nmdp.org. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, I can close it up here for us, Tanner. I know we had a long show. Not as much to talk about, but I think we had a lot of fun talking about what we did talk about. So just want to thank everyone, obviously our Patreon investors, the reason why we're able to do this week in and week out. Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, and Nico, who is our newest investor, as well as all the YouTube super chats and buy me a coffees that we've gotten on these broadcasts over the years. We really do appreciate that, especially if you don't want to make the investment into a full-time Patreon thing. We really do appreciate when you guys throw us money here and there, just to be able to allow us to do what we do. And as well, social media, just a reminder to everyone, we're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X. Pretty sure if it exists, we are there. I think we're even on Threads too, but that's an app, unfortunately for Meta, that just hasn't really done a lot of stuff. But yeah, just a reminder to everyone too, as well. Grid Rising will be next Monday as well. Grid Tonight will be Wednesday. I think they have a lot to talk about over there. So shout out to Kobe, shout out Matt and Joshua as well. And then as a reminder to everyone, I always like to say, don't be afraid to do something great. And thank you all for tuning into episode 4 of Grid Rising. And we will see you all next time. So thank you.